It's a real pleasure to be here and to partner with DataQuest for this digital summit and enclave. I joined NIIT in 1990, so it's been a long time and literally my one and only job. And one of the things I remember each year was waiting very patiently for the DQ awards. And at NIIT, we were very fortunate for being recognized by DQ as an innovator and leader in the technology and learning space. And I think what's been very interesting is the use of technology in learning. And every 2 or 3 years, we kind of feel that we've licked all the problems and there's a fantastic new technology that is going to solve all the issues with learning and development. But it's been a journey of continuous innovation and learning science and technology keep coming together to bring newer solutions together. It's been particularly exciting for us at NIIT because many of the ideas that we've struggled to implement because the ideas were a little ahead of what technology made possible, we're beginning to see how that will actually fructify. And from our point of view, what makes a learning solution better is if it can help people learn better, faster, cheaper, and perhaps safer. So let's just very quickly look at what are some of the things that are takeaways from the conversations, both the Jaspreets in the morning plus the panel discussion. Just very quickly wanted to touch upon the fact, one, of course, that while it was really, really exciting to have an AI tool, be able to recognize and work with natural language, I think it's become even better because now it's going to be multimodal. And all of us in the learning industry are just beginning to take advantage of it. What is also happening is that the technology is becoming a lot more affordable. I mean, even in the last 2 years, the prices have literally come down by almost 100% to an extent where if we think about AI supporting a service, potentially costs are coming down to something which could be, less than ₹1 per minute. So which means an hour-long session supported by technology could be, something like 40, 50 rupees a minute for an hour. And perhaps in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll see that reducing to 10 or 15 rupees an hour, at which point of time it will really be ready for mass adoption. I think the debate in terms of, should India build an LLM or not continues. But I think with the government's AI mission, clearly that's going to get a lot of wings. But what we're seeing more evidence of is the fact that organizations across the board have a wealth of domain expertise. And that fits in perfectly, with the development of small language models. And that's what we're going to see more of. And certainly all of us at NIIT particularly keeping our 45 years of original content and data that we have, that's something that we're looking for specifically in the learning and development domain. The rise of agents, so AI not just waiting for us to interact and ask it help, but actually working behind the scenes. And some of you would wonder why would we want it to do things like that. But there are so many use cases. In just a couple of weeks back, I was at a panel discussion where one of the panelists shared, very interesting but intuitive use case. We have one of the largest installed base of wind turbines in the country as part of our drive towards green energy. Imagine a turbine constantly having to change its orientation during the day, depending upon where and how the wind is, flowing. That's not something that we would want human beings to have to decide with 100,000 turbines all across the country or more. So that's an application of AI where it autonomously decides how to reorient the turbine. And there are so many more industrial applications and other applications of this kind where autonomous decision-making makes sense. I think the last point, keeping in mind the audience in this room, is the fact that while CIOs, CTOs are busy thinking of the real lighthouse kind of applications, there is a low-hanging fruit, which is the ability of each and every person in an organization to benefit from the power of AI. And as one global CIO I interacted with said that in their organization they've taken on a charter that can everyone have a personal AI assistant, literally a co-worker who's going to help them work better, faster, cheaper. So that's something that NIIT particularly decided to focus on, which is while 1 out of 10 people are amongst those involved in the IT services or IT functions in organizations, what about the balance 9 of 10? And how do we empower them? So one of the early McKinsey studies in this area showed that over the next 2 or 3 years, helping individuals improve their personal productivity is going to be one of the key deliverables of generative AI. And interestingly, just 4 functions, marketing, sales, product R&D, customer service, and software engineering are predicted to have almost 80% of the benefits accruing just in these 4 functions. So you don't have to really spread yourself thin in trying to look for use cases, because just these 4 functions itself can deliver a lot of value to organizations. And I think here the reality is that there are going to be hybrid teams. Just like robotic process automation brought in the whole concept of certain tasks getting automated, agents are going to take that to the next level. And you can't have an effective team if the team members don't cooperate and collaborate and work well with each other. And one way of making such teams work better is to make sure that the humans inside those teams are well versed with the capabilities of AI and particularly GenAI. In some ways, this is akin to the personal computing revolution 40 years ago. It was a horizontal technology, affected every single function and every level of the organization. And most of the research data, including a recent EY study that was published on the idea of India, shows that even now less than 15% cases have really use cases have gone into production. And less than about, it's a single digit, 8% cases where companies are actively able to monitor costs and allocate them to the concerned users. So it's still, in many cases, initiatives that are sponsored by the CIO in the hope of getting subsequent benefits. But it hasn't got to a stage where it is a managed and predictable service. And that's probably what it's going to be like for the next 18 to 24 months. Here's an interesting framework that we are looking at when it comes to the impact of AI, particularly from the overall organization's point of view in terms of talent development. If we look at the 2 axes in terms of experience and expertise, ideally what we want as leaders in organizations is if everybody in our team represents high experience and high expertise, because that obviously translates into high performance. But we know that that top right quadrant is actually a small quadrant. A lot of people in organizations are at a very early stage of their career, sometimes as high as 20, 30, 40%, and which means they are low in expertise, low in experience. So we started wondering how AI will impact each of these categories and what might be the role for it. And this is how we've started thinking about it, that for people who are at an early stage of their career, the role of AI can be as a learning accelerator. How can we help them learn better and faster so that they can become deployable, they can become billable, and they can be relied upon? And there are many ways in which this learning can happen, and it can be accelerated. Now, if we move to the right side in terms of experience, the core of any organization are people who've have a lot of experience. They become specialists in their chosen area or process, and they're working at a high level of efficiency in that area. But the challenge for companies is that businesses and the way work is done is getting disrupted, and suddenly you have to confront a situation where you have somebody very experienced, but whose skill sets may no longer be relevant to the job today. And there, the role of AI is as a productivity enhancer. How can we help them acquire new skills, have the overall experience, but translate that to a new area, and ensure that they remain relevant? And this is something that will be very important in the next 5 to 10 years as more and more disruptions happen. The contrast to that are people who have deep expertise but are always short in supply. You need them in multiple places. And there the role of AI is literally going to be in terms of duplicating that capacity. Think of avatars. Think of AI models which can be available to teams where they are needed, when they are needed, round the clock, 24/7. And you're not constrained by the fact that you have a few people who have deep expertise, but not enough of them. And it's not going to be easy to quickly duplicate them. So that's where companies can think of how to take that organizational knowledge, the expertise of people, and use AI as a force multiplier. And finally, we come to the top right, which is typically the leadership teams, people who have both deep experience and expertise. And there the issue is that they can only be at one place at a time. And can AI be used as an impact multiplier, helping both their expertise and experience to be more widespread in the organization? So this is a workforce transformation framework that a lot of us at NIIT are working around and making sure that we create solutions that help organizations use AI effectively from an overall talent development point of view. And just to sort of conclude as to where you get started, because many organizations we see are still waiting for those impactful projects to fructify. And therefore, one of the things that we came up with was a very structured program that could enable organizations to get started on this journey of adopting and embracing GenAI. And it, is both a top-down, leadership-driven journey as well as a bottom-up, people-oriented journey. And the way we typically recommend organizations do is to ensure that the leadership team comes up with a very clear communication of why we're doing it, what is the vision for the organization, what are the benefits, how will it help individuals at a personal level and the organization overall. We begin with, in some ways, then enabling leaders to be able to get comfortable using GenAI, because typically at that level they're surrounded by people who are there to help them, extended teams. But it's important for the leadership to demonstrate personal ability to use generative AI, and more importantly, understand the current state of development, what are its limitations, so that their expectations are not unreasonable either, and are pragmatic. And from there, something that we call GenAI for all, really democratizing the use of GenAI, but in a safe and secure manner for the organization. And this is really independent of function or vertical. In fact, we encourage groups which are heterogeneous, because that's what enables ideation and everybody getting engaged with the technology and how to use it effectively. And then from there, the real hands-on skilling. And today the good news is there are low-code, no-code tools which allow end users, and like Jaspreet mentioned, English is the new programming language. So the essentials of things like prompt engineering, which can enable everyone, irrespective of whether they're from marketing or sales or finance or HR, to be able to actively use GenAI. And the whole thing about this is it's as much change and habit formation. Only then will it really translate into daily or weekly active usage. We did a show of hands at the beginning saying how many people use ChatGPT, and expectedly everybody raised their hands. But if you put your hand on your heart and say how effectively are you using it, and are you using it on a daily basis, the number is much smaller. And globally that number is probably 10 to 15%. So there is a long way to go for that to become part of people's daily arsenal of tools that they use. And that's one of the things that NIIT, just like it did with the IT revolution over the last 3 or 4 decades, we're committed to in terms of enabling organizations to help not just their technology professionals, but everyone across the board embrace and adopt GenAI. So that's what the whole journey looks like, and we've designed it so that it can be done over a 100-day period. And of course, that's the first cohort, and eventually, that can proliferate across the organization. So that's what I wanted to leave everyone in this room with, particularly those of you who are heading IT functions. Of course, it's important to have the right skills in the IT department, but while you're building those breakthrough applications, lighthouse projects, there's a journey that the end users can begin with so that when you're ready to roll out your applications, the end users are ready to use them effectively. Otherwise, everyone's walking into the company with their cell phones and they've got AI over there, but it's unregulated and with its obvious issues and concerns. So we'd certainly love to continue this conversation and see what your plans are and how we can help you adopt GenAI effectively. Thank you.